to Transcendental Transformation, the place where spirituality and transformation unite. Host Miss Raina imparts truth so that you can break through your limiting beliefs and evolve into a deeper consciousness. As you go about your day, remember, before every breakthrough, there is a breakdown. And now, let's start the show.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Sessions. Today is Saturday, April 18th, and it is approximately about 1 o'clock. And I'm excited to be bringing back Sessions because if you're not familiar with Sessions, Sessions is a little mini show that we like to do here at Transcendental Transformation where we kind of go over sometimes people's questions and we dive deeper into some topics. And today, we are actually going to be talking about the topic of self-sabotage. And the reason why I wanted to talk about this subject was because for me, I feel it seems to go in hand with what's going on with a lot of chaos right now. There is a lot of chaos happening with the coronavirus, and just kind of with my friends, I see people purposely self-sabotaging their lives, their romantic relationships, and all sorts of things. And this seems to be a big theme in a lot of people's lives. And if I know you're like me, I know for a fact that we've all self-sabotaged ourselves one way or shape or form or another, right? And it is okay that this happens, but the point is that we want to try to stop it. So, we look at self-sabotage and we say, what do we do to self-sabotage? What are so many ways that so many of us actually self-sabotage our friendships, our relationships, our jobs, even our emotional status? I mean, I know a lot of times for people who are very emotional, a lot of times we do that, right? We seem like we're going in a good space and we're really going forward and we're doing all these things that we're supposed to be doing that are supposed to be right, and then all of a sudden something always seems to come up, right? It's always like we hit a brick wall, and in that brick wall we can't it stops us from doing what we want to do. And what we look at in that aspect is we have to look at ourselves. And a lot of times I know that I know people who listen to this show are starting to either look at themselves or are starting to look at themselves, or maybe you're coming to this show for the first time and you're starting to say, well, I always hear people talk about looking at themselves, but it's hard to take responsibility for self-sabotage. It really is. When I work with people on this subject, it's very temperamental because a lot of people, we don't really choose to look at ourselves and say, well, I caused this. This is the reason why this happened was because of me. And that's the very first place that we got to start. We really got to start with saying, I am the person who is doing this to myself. And the reason why we have to do that is because that takes responsibility for our lives. When we don't take responsibility for our lives, what ends up happening is the fact that we push everything off on everybody else and we can't grow because it's everybody else's fault, because this person stopped me from doing what I wanted, because this person mistreated me, because this person fired me. It's always somebody else. And how can we really learn to grow as a human being, as a spirit, if we're always blaming everything else and everyone else for our problems? And so this is a form of self-sabotage, because we, in the refusal of our mind and our hearts to look at oneself, creates this chaotic mess that a lot of times will be very destructive in our lives. And I know for many of us, how many of us have had relationships, and relationships seems to be a big topic because I know many people might say, and I don't just mean romantic relationships, I mean friendships too, and even family relationships. But every single one of us has sabotaged a friendship or a romantic partner or something due to our insecurities, due to our fears, due to the inability to control our emotions, or whatever the situation is. And I know a lot of you are going to say, well, Miss Raina, I've been hurt in the past. Yes, well, we've all been hurt in the past. So many of us have been hurt in the past, and we have to look at ourselves in that aspect, and we have to start looking at ourselves. Well, if these things hurt us in the past, why are they affecting us in our present? Because there really is no future and there really is no past, but we view life as that way. We live in the past with our pain, and we dream of our future because we are so uncomfortable with our present that we forget that the present really is all that matters. The now is the only thing that exists. And in that moment, we can thus start to realize all the walls, all the, I always say the emotional landmines, all the emotional landmines we put in front of us for us to be able to step on. So we go boom. And then we say, well, that wasn't our fault. That wasn't my fault because, look, I stepped on this landmine. I didn't put the landmine there. I didn't put that wall in front of me. And this is what's done to me. And the victim side of our mind, and if you've heard my show in the past, I always break up the ego without going into the id and the super ego and all that stuff. I always break up the harmful part of the ego into the victim and the survivor, because what ends up happening is a lot of times we're always in this victim mode because we look at our lives as such as horror. And really, if you got to think about it, most of the things that we really take as trauma and horror really aren't that bad. I mean, people do hurt us, people do lie to us, people do cheat on us. But, if you go around the world, I mean, there are people that have to walk 2-3 miles to get just a bucket of water every day, and then they got to walk back. And people are starving, people are full of disease, people live in mud houses with no electricity, no hospitals. Food is so scarce that if their child survives past the age of 3, it's a miracle. And life can be really subjective based on what we're looking at. And I am a big fan of Reddit. I don't know if you guys are. I'm a nerd. I love Reddit, and I know you people who love Reddit, you're smiling right now because you know exactly where I'm going. There is a subject out there called first world problems, and I always kind of and I never am dismissive of our issues, because we as humans, we gauge our pain based on our experience. And so what does that mean? That means in the mindset of our pain and suffering, whatever we experience the most painful, that is what we're going to gauge the rest of our life as pain and suffering on. So, for example, someone who grows up in Boca Raton, who really doesn't know about, people being shot, stabbed, murdered, selling drugs, all this stuff, living in poverty, because Boca Raton is a very rich area. They don't understand, people in there don't understand people from, like, maybe someone from the hard side of New York or Chicago or LA or even Miami, the poor parts of Miami, where people struggle, to have electricity, for people to struggle to rent and pay rent and all sorts of different things. So, you look at it, and really that's what I'm talking about is what we gauge our pain and suffering on. So if if you have food on the table, a nice car, and nice clothes all the time, you always have electricity, your bills paid, everything, your gauge of victimization, or your gauge of pain is going to be way different than someone who sleeps on the floor with a blanket with holes on the floor, that has their electricity shut off every day, who's scrounging for meals, and maybe it's for them to get a 60-cent or 69-cent cheeseburger from McDonald's, maybe that's their food for the day, and that's a huge difference. So we gauge ourselves, and the victim really plays in it. And especially here in the first world, a lot of times we really do have first world problems. And so I try to put people in perspective of that. I always say, look, if we're self-sabotaging our life, put yourself in perspective of others, because that's really what we're going to go into when we look at perspective. And you guys know I talk about perspective a lot. When we go into perspective, that's when we start to see past what we're looking for. We start to understand that, hey, maybe my issues in life aren't as bad, aren't as crazy, aren't as painful as I'm making them out to be. Maybe only because I've only stubbed my toe in life, and that's the worst pain I can imagine compared to someone, giving childbirth or breaking their arms or maybe losing an arm or a leg or something like that. If we start to put things in perspective that way, maybe our issues and our pain and suffering really aren't as bad as we do. And that will help us rein in the inability to control our emotions a little bit. I have a few people right now. Everybody's politically hating on everybody. And that's why I stay out of it. I don't get into the political issues. I don't get into the political hate, but I know a lot of people out there hate our current president, and there's a lot of people out there that hate our past presidents, and it always seems to be, no matter what we have in office, Congress, Senate, presidency, there's always a group of people that are always going to hate, and we hate with such passion. And I watch on social media all the time, and we're going to have a show this week, this Tuesday, on how social media really hurts our emotional state and our mental health. But I see all the time, I have a few friends that constantly post hatred towards our current president, and whether I agree with it or not, and I'm not saying I agree or disagree, because I'm always neutral. They hate with such passion to the point where it becomes their daily life, that becomes involved in anger, and literally they're self-sabotaging not only their own life and their own happiness and their own ability to see a different perspective, but they're sabotaging everything else, because then people who don't agree with the people that are posting all these stuff will start to say, well, this is not a person I want to be around because we don't agree. We go through girlfriends, boyfriends, we go through family members. I mean, I know for a fact, I've even seen it in my own family. I've had cousins and aunts and uncles and stuff like that. I've watched them fight with each other over this kind of stuff, and literally sabotage their relationships over difference of opinions. And really, we have to really look at ourselves in that aspect, because when we believe that we're right, and you know how I feel about right and wrong, they don't exist, but when we really feel we're right on something and somebody else is wrong, we start attacking them. We start saying they're stupid, they're idiots, they don't know what I know, and if you don't agree with me, and we become so close-minded. And that literally transfers the victim, because we're so without already, because we don't have, because we're in so much pain, we transfer the victim into the survivor, and the inability to control our emotions blows out of the water, and we become this chaotic tornado of emotions, just whirlwinding anything that stands in our path. And basically, we really do live a life of chaos. And from that point on, when we are that uncontrollable tornado force, that uncontrollable, unstoppable force, any immovable object has to get out of the way, because an immovable object and an unstoppable force can't coexist at the same time. It's impossible. And that's literally what people are doing. And we become angry, and we don't recognize that anger now has become our daily life, that the idea of anger is in fact the catalyst between all of our ideas and all of our self-sabotage. And that's why you're blaming everybody. That is why you're looking and saying, hey, these people are idiots. It's not that you really believe that they're idiots. I mean, you might literally consciously think that, but subconsciously that's how you feel about yourself. You think that because you've been hurt, because you've been maybe bamboozled by a relationship or a job, or you've been taken advantage of, or you're not treated right, that, you think that you're an idiot for not recognizing that. and really our reflection. Because remember, even a week ago I was talking about perspective of duality and how we look at ourselves, and if we're in neutral in duality, we can see both sides of the full spectrum, and that it's that idea. And because you're in one side all the time, you're in anger and stuff, you can't see what it is that's going on. And so subconsciously it's showing you, hey, you're in so much chaos that everything you say and do is a reflection of who you are. And that's really what it's all about. You look at these ideas and you say, I know there's so many out there that want to control everything because they feel so out of control. They become control freaks. Well, I'm just going to try to control everything. I'm going to try to control, my life and what I can and everything like that. And that's what we try to do. Then all of a sudden our anger becomes fear, and our fear compensates the feelings and the emotions that we're feeling because we don't know how to deal with them. I mean, how many of us don't know how to deal with our emotions? We don't. We really don't know how to deal with our feelings. I know I get people writing me on Facebook all the time wanting to talk to me because they feel so out of control, so chaotic, that they literally put themselves in the ER day in and day out because their body is literally shutting down, going into spasms, going into panic attacks, anxiety. And trust me, I used to live in anxiety and depression all the time, and because I've really been doing a lot of soul work lately, a lot of the issues that I used to deal with have gone away. I mean, my anxiety levels are next to nil. My panic attacks are next to nil, and it feels wonderful because I'm not allowing those subconscious fears and anger from the past to keep me in this perpetual motion of chaos. I mean, what is it that you actually, you got to look at this, and when we're self-sabotaging ourselves and say that, hey, this is what I'm doing to myself, and you know what? I like it. I like it here. And I know a lot of you are going to be having a problem with that because of that idea. You're going to say, well, I don't like it here, Miss Raina. I don't like getting anxiety. No, you don't, but your ego does. Your ego loves to be in that mode. That's why you do it. Because if you understand the brain and you understand how patterns work, and you understand that the brain loves patterns and neurons do too, and they fire whatever way fires the most comfortable, and that's what we call a habit. And so those habits are what we want in life. If you want to quit smoking, you do. If you want to quit eating junk, you do. If you want to quit that, when you don't want to do it, it's because you haven't made that choice. It's because of the patterns that are going on in your brain. So we look at the two forms of control, or we're looking at two things that we can do. We can either have over control. We can try to control everything and create more chaos. We can try to create, we can try to stop what we can't control, and that's going to create more anger, more pain, more suffering. Or we can take a step back. Remember, we can become neutral and start looking at life as what it really is. Remove the ideas of good, bad, right, wrong, positive, negative, backwards, forwards, better, worse, and look at things just as they are. And ask yourself, well, what was my part in it? What was my thing that I could look at? What was my idea what is the responsibility that I took in this to create this? And if I had an interaction with someone that someone treated me poorly or someone did something, what was my responsibility of ignoring the signs that were happening? What was my responsibility of allowing it to continue instead of stepping up for myself and saying, hey, I'm done with this? And really, that's why we call people stupid and idiots, because deep down, again, we feel like we're stupid. We feel like we're idiots for allowing something to happen to us for so long. Now, as someone who has had trauma, a lot of physical trauma in her life, I can understand that, yes, as a child, there are certain things you can't do, and that's a whole nother subject. But I'm talking about as an adult, we can dictate and stop and change what we want now. As a child, we'll do that another session show, but that's what we're going to do. I have a friend that was so upset because of he was posting that, like, oh, if you got to wear face masks and during this coronavirus because otherwise you're going to get everyone sick. And he's a really nice guy. I really like him, and got a great heart and everything. But but he got so angry, and I said, why? I said, hey man, what's going on? Why are you so angry? Well, I just don't like it that people, it's law right now that everyone's supposed to wear a face mask, and they're not, and they're going to get everyone sick. Well, I said, well, why are you trying to control the situation? Why are you doing that? And he's like, well, he's like, I just want people to wake up, and be responsible like me. And I said, there's your first problem, is you're trying to control a situation that is out of your control. And and we're trying to, and you're trying to force people to be like you. I go, if you continue this path, you are going to be in a lifetime of chaos, because you're going to set these unreal expectations of people that you want them to be like you, and they're not you. They'll never be you, and they'll never do what you want them to do. And you're going to be angry, and you're going to become sour. You're going to become this sour, bitter person that tries to influence everybody around them and tries to dictate who they are, who you are. And you're going to go from being such a nice person, a nice, caring person, to being bitter and angry and just nasty. And you're going to be involved in everything. And that's how we lose ourselves. In self-sabotage, the only thing we can do is be ourselves. We have to learn to let go. And I don't mean let go as in forgiveness, because I don't believe in forgiveness. But we have to learn to let go as far as understanding of what the situation is in truth, from an impartial idea, and look at things from the whole perspective. When we look at things from a whole perspective, impartially, and we look at things unemotionally, and we take responsibility, we start to stop the self-sabotage in our lives, the defensive mechanisms, the overcritical, the past mistakes, taking things on a personal level. That doesn't matter anymore. You won't get as defensive as you used to be. You just be pushing, but if you choose not to, you're going to push back into your old behaviors. You're going to become that person of, oh, I'm not good enough. They're not good enough. Because they don't think like me, and because every person I date is like this, and everybody's like, and we get into that thing. And so we have to learn to let go. I have a very close friend. I know we're running out of time. I'm in 21 minutes. I'm a few minutes over. We'll go to 25 minutes tonight because I just want to finish this up. But I have a friend, a very close friend, who always has to have the pat on the back. They always want an applause for everything that they do. If people don't like what this person's doing, and they don't be like, oh my God, you did this great, so wonderful, and basically throw a parade every time they do something, this person gets really upset and nasty with the people around them. And I feel, my heart goes out to them, because they're sabotaging so many good relationships, so many fun relationships, because of the need for attention, because of whatever happened in their childhood. This person has become overly critical and destroys every relationship, because they're really looking for love. They're really looking for that, that acceptance. But even though they're getting that acceptance, because it's not what they think they want the acceptance to be, they blow up and destroy it. And that's really where we have to look at perspective. We really have to see the other side. We really have to see all sides. We have to see the light and the dark, and again, the good and the bad, not as in good versus bad or good versus evil, but as in positive attraction versus negative attraction. And we have to see the bigger picture of everything. We have to allow ourselves to let go of the ego and take responsibility for what is. Because if we don't face our truth, if we don't face the true perspectives of both sides, what ends up happening is the victim overrides the truth, and we can't see anything. We're not allowed to see the truth, because the victim and our ego and our survivor only makes us see the perspective that it wants us to see. So, all right, guys, I know I'm a little over here, about 3 minutes and stuff like that. Normally we go about 20 minutes, but I just was having fun, and I just want to, just finish my points. So, But yeah, all right, guys, that is our little mini show today. We're probably gonna try to do about maybe two a month. I don't know, or maybe whenever I decide to do them. That's what we're gonna do. We're gonna start taking this to audio, or not audio, video as well, because I know our viewers and everybody like to see people, and it's sometimes so much easier to watch than just to listen. So, but all right, guys, always remember to believe in yourself, and it's not our abilities or our talents that make us who we are. It is our choices. Thank you and have a wonderful day.